Today, we're going to dissect, decipher Pythagoras on a whole other level. And to be completely and honestly, humbly honest with you, from all the information that I researched, from all of the ancient scriptures I researched, from all the documentaries I researched, this is literally the most encompassing Pythagoras thing I have come across, and I've come across almost every single thing that's Pythagoras. It's brought it all together, dissected the myths, dissected the truths, and went into the ancient history. But let me just go ahead and share screen, and you'll find out what I'm talking about as we do this here. So here we go. Just tell me one thing, guys. Are you ready for this? That's all I want to know. Are you ready? Welcome, beautiful people, to, let me just make sure my camera is good here. All right, Magic Made Me said born ready. Okay, cool. I like that. I like to hear that. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Truth, the Life, and Times of Pythagoras presentation that is brought to you by myself. And before we get started into today's journey, we're going to lay down some rules here and put a little disclaimer out, okay? So first of all, many of people in the world have, I don't know if you've come across this at all, but I have reservations about Pythagoras since he did not actually discover all the info he shared. As we're going to go into some information later, he definitely did his own experiments, came to his own conclusions on a lot of things, but a lot of the foundational information and a lot of what we utilize today in mainstream world in regards to his awareness, he did not discover himself. So some people have reservations about Pythagoras because he collected data from other ancient civilizations. So they don't want to give him as much credit, right? And again, we're going to get into this. His secret society, he had a secret society, we're going to talk about that, was the foundation for many eventual nefarious societies that took his information for themselves. So that's another reason why people have some reservations about him. Some think there's an element of racism due to the credit Pythagoras gets, since a lot of his awareness comes from Africa, comes from India, comes from Babylon, and obviously we're talking about Greek philosophy and Greek thought in this moment here. So as much information as I'm about to share with you, there are always going to be aspects that have been lost to time, different perspectives or factors that cannot be deciphered or may not be covered, right? Just know that with this presentation, does go really deep, and I attempted to hit on as many, if not almost everything as I could. But as I'm researching every single day, and you know that I changed the date for this presentation, it was going to be in December. I changed it to today because there was so much information out there. I didn't think I could do it justice with everything that I had acquired. I needed to go even deeper, because every time I went a little deeper with something, there was more information that was just coming out of the woodwork, and I had to figure out how to put it together. Disclaimer part 2. There is no evidence that Pythagoras said he discovered all this information for himself. So even though there are those out there that believe Pythagoras shouldn't get credit, there is actually no evidence at all that he said he discovered this information. There's plenty of evidence, however, from his followers and other ancient cultures that he explored where he gained his info. So just with a little bit of research, you can immediately find out where he got everything. It's not hidden. It's not, he's not given exclusive credit. Just a bit of research will take you down the rabbit hole of really realizing where he got all this information from. From a look at his life, he was a peaceful, anti-war, anti-political corruption individual with some fundamental spiritual and dietary beliefs. The societies that came after him utilized his awareness for their own agendas. He was anti-elitism, right? But of course, a lot of the information that came from Pythagoras became very, very much hijacked by the elite. So this does not mean he was in alignment with what happened after his death. So that's my disclaimer, just as we get into this. Some of the sources that we're going to be going over today that are going to be a part of this presentation, and just some, because there's definitely much, much more, is Plato's information on him, Aristotle's information, Iamblichus, his information, he's a Pythagorean, Ovid, Plutarch, the science of sound frequency information that is modern and ancient, mystery schools and ancient Indian, Zoroastrian, Egyptian, and Babylonian text, mathematical and harmonic modern research of ancient structures from around the world that predate Pythagoras' findings. So that is pretty much 90% of a lot of research that comes through here. And even though, the list is short, a lot of these things, obviously the sound frequency, there's thousands of research studies. So it's really a short list, but each one of these encompasses a lot of data. Now, the word philosophy, right? Setting a groundwork here to begin this. Philosophy comes from two words, philos, which means wisdom, and sophia, which means truth. So a philosopher is a lover of wisdom and truth. Before Pythagoras, these individuals were called sages. So it is actually said that Pythagoras actually came up with the term philosopher. It is pretty much, when we look at the history, it looked like Pythagoras had gone around the world and he had met a lot of people that were aware of some of the concepts that he really started diving into. And they were calling themselves sages in India and even in Egypt and Babylon and beyond. He didn't really like this term, so he decided to go with philos sophia, which means a lover of wisdom and truth. But why are we even talking about Pythagoras? And I feel a lot of you that are on here today probably understand the reason why we're talking about Pythagoras. But let's just go ahead and review this and just really see, why did I spend so much time putting a presentation together on this individual, right? Well, firstly, our modern alphabet in the world, the buildings around us, the music we hear, the frequencies we use for healing, including the chakra tuning forks, the collection of ancient cultures into one philosophy is something that he really did. He collected a lot of ancient civilizations information and put it into one in one practical application. Mathematics, modern music, Western music scale. He said it was the language of creation and the universe, the language of the gods. And he brought the knowledge of the world to a practical application. He was mentioned extensively. He's been mentioned extensively in presentations, conferences I've been to. A lot of people speak about him, but they don't go deep into him. They just mention him, right? So these are reasons why we're talking about Pythagoras today. He is really a cornerstone of this awareness. He is one out of many individuals that have contributed to our ancient past. And then also the elite worship him. There is actually a worshiping towards him, or at least a reverence that it seems that some elite secret societies had towards him. So the question is, why did they do that? How did that even occur? He also theorized that planets and light exist at harmonic intervals. So we're understanding that now and realizing that now, right? And also he affects at this point, because of Pythagoras, every aspect of his information that he collected, researched, and put out there is literally the reason why it really affects every aspect of our modern lives, from the bridges we cross to the buildings we're in, to the music we listen to. It affects every aspect of our life. So why not explore this individual? There's a quote from Pythagoras, and we're going to have a few quotes today throughout this presentation. And what I need to say about these quotes are that there is no actual writings from Pythagoras. All the writings about Pythagoras, is his work, came after Pythagoras, or from just his followers, his Pythagoreans and other mathematicians, geometricians, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. All of these individuals wrote about Pythagoras. He never actually has any documented writings. So all the quotes that are said that he said are literally things people said Pythagoras said. Okay, so it is said that he said, "There is geometry in the humming of the strings. There is music in the spacing of the spheres." Now, we're going to go ahead and give a context of the life of the times that Pythagoras lived in, the Greek times in 6th century BC, 5th century BC, all the way up until the unification of Greece. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and play this right here, just to kind of show you another reason why we're studying it. And what I really want you to think from this video here is, why did this person, Terrence Howard, this actor, even say what he is saying? What is really the depth of the reason behind what you're about to listen to in this moment? And then we'll go ahead and start with showing the context of ancient Greece at the time of Pythagoras. Let me just double check here and make sure. Let me just make sure that the sound is working, and I'm just going to check the chat, see that everybody's here nice and comfortable. All right.
We're just schmoozing all the reporters at the Emmy, starting out with a happy anniversary to me and Jessica. This was our 11th Emmy red carpet. Yeah. So I think it's safe to say we've had hundreds of red carpet conversations. But we've never had a red carpet conversation quite like this. When Empire debuted on Fox, show was red hot. Now, series star Terrence Howard says when it concludes this season, he's done with acting, and that's not all. We woke to headlines about the conversation this morning. Howard Stern, no less, played the whole thing. Friends in the booth, please drop the crawl at the bottom of the screen. Take it away, because we've taken what Terrence said, we put the words at the bottom of the screen to see if we can all better understand it. Good luck to all of us. Lucius is in the house. Terrence Howard here. You made huge headlines when you said, after you complete these 15 episodes of Empire, you got to walk away for a while or forever?
For good. I mean, everyone keeps trying to tell me, don't say it's forever. But I've spent 37 years pretending to be people so that people can pretend to watch and enjoy what I'm doing when I've made some discoveries in my own personal life with the science that, you know, Pythagoras was searching for. I was able to open up the flower of life properly and find the real wave conjugations that we've been looking for 10,000 years. Why would I continue, you know, walking on water for tips when I've got an entire generation to teach a whole new world?
That's a big remark. Yeah. What do you intend to do?
Well, let me put it this way. All energy in the universe is expressed in motion. All motion is expressed in waves. All waves are curved. So where does the straight lines come from to make the platonic solids? There are no straight lines. So when I took the flower of life and opened it properly, I found a whole new wave conjugations that expose the in-between spaces. It's the thing that holds us all together.
Okay,
I didn't do too well in trigonometry. What is the
platonic solids?
Wow.
But
conjugating going on?
You thought that was it. It isn't. There's more.
No.
I'm sharing that on Tuesday when I receive my star. I'm going to be able to prove that gravity is only an effect and not a force. I'm putting something on YouTube where I will build the planet Saturn without gravity and build the Milky Way galaxy without gravity.
Did you also say you're getting your star on Tuesday?
Yeah.
On the Walk of Fame?
On the Walk of Fame,
Well,
which is interesting. How am I getting a star?
All right, that's it for that one right there. And then if you want to look more, go to Terrence Howard's website where he's actually doing and attempting to create the science and put it out there. He actually has a multiple-hour lecture at Yale University that he's speaking to the students there. And he had a lot of pushback for this information that he was sharing because they just thought that they were smarter than him and he was kind of like a quack, but definitely there's something going on there. So the question is, why did he say that? Why did he even come on TV to say that? He knew that they wouldn't know what he's talking about. What did he want to get out there and what is actually going on? And that really goes back to that, you know, people that have been initiated in the elite, for example, really have this connection to Pythagoras. So now let's take a trip back in time, everybody. We're going to go to Greece, 6th century BC. And this is just a few years before the birth of Pythagoras. In the 6th century BC, the scale of Greek warfare in Greece had increased somewhat in this century. When groups of city-states formed alliances, the most famous of these was the Peloponnesian League under the leadership of Sparta, and during the Persian Wars, the Delian League emerged under the leadership of Athens. The Delian League was including Samos, which is the island that Pythagoras was born on, and a lot of the Eastern Greek city-states that were connected and close to Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, because of the Persian Empire and the Persian Empire's influence. They needed to come together. So the Persian Empire and their might basically forced a lot of Greek city-states to start creating alliances in order to protect themselves. And this is the time that Pythagoras was born into and happened during his life. In the 5th century, which is right when he was actually in his last couple of years, this was occurring. And then obviously after that, for the whole century, the period of the 5th century in BC in classical Greece is generally considered as beginning in 500 BC and ending in 404 BC. Though some people debate, you know, the years and if it's more or less than that, the classical period. If one looks at the whole Greek world, However, we might place its beginning at the Ionian Revolt in 500 BC that provoked the first Persian invasion of 492 BC. And Pythagoras is known as an Ionian philosopher because he was from that area. And this happened, as I said, in the tail end of his life. In the classical period, it was dominated by Athens and the Delian League during the 5th century, but displaced by Spartan hegemony during the 4th century BC, before power then shifted to Thebes and the Boeotian League, and finally to the League of Corinth, led by Macedon. The Greeks achieved new heights at this time for art, architecture, theater, and of course, philosophy. Democracy in Athens was refined under the leadership of Pericles, and this was a war of freedom, and the Greeks would continue on to free Persian rule. And right now, we're actually talking about the years after Pythagoras, because I want to give you not only a context of his life, but what actually happened after his life too, just to let you know the energy of which he was around. And then, of course, about 100 years after Pythagoras' life, in 358 BC, Philip II of Macedonia took on nearby city-states to expand his own territory. He ultimately unified Greece. When Philip was killed, his son, Alexander the Great, took power and then built Greece into an empire. There was no unified Greece until this point. So when we say the Greek philosopher, Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, and when we say that about Pythagoras, there actually was no Greece at that point, one unified Greece. So that actually happened later. In the most flourishing, blossoming time of the Greek city-states, there were actually up to 1,000 Greek city-states at one point before Alexander the Great, took and started the empire. Took and started the empire.